And we're live.
Yay.
Yay. Here is a link to the pop-out chat, which, I mean, you guys already know how to find it and stuff. I don't know why I continue to share that. But anyway, I will welcome everybody who's participating or that is going to come into the future into our live chat. We're going to be recording this episode in just a few seconds. All three of us are there in the chat room, or at least have made our marks there, and now to see how well we monitor it. Hey, there's Murr. He's here.
Hey, Murr.
Did you have a short game night tonight? I know that Murr hit 1,500 gaming days of gaming in a row over, I believe, over the last sort of holiday and last few months.
Yeah.
Well, it's and by the way, Murr, hey, thanks a lot for I'm looking forward to getting to check out this game that's the TC says something so just is so positive about. And anyway, we'll look forward to trying it. 3-player games. Andy, we've got some luck with 3-player games in this group.
Yeah, actually, yeah, and the way the game group sizes have broken up the last couple weeks, getting a 3-player in actually, I think will be easier than it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be if it was like not too long ago, it always felt like if it wasn't 4 or more, it wasn't going to happen very often. Like getting a 3 going was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's a difficult thing to do. I don't know. It kind of just depends on dynamics and stuff. But yeah,
right.
It's weird. I feel like the people that have a general like a 3-player group dynamic, like really want to, they want the 3-player dynamic to sort of be specially addressed, right? Like there's a lot of 2-player games where, you're trying to avoid a sort of zero-sum situation. You want to avoid that, like 2-player games that are good at avoiding zero-sum situations where like if I do this, you do this, if you do this, I do this, sort of like program decided moves. And then 3-player games, the problem is every time that A attacks B, C's winning because they're not having to spend any resources, and A is having to spend resources, B is, getting attacked.
Yeah. My feelings on 3-player games are generally, unless they're closer to multiplayer solitaire or they're specifically designed to handle 3 players, they probably don't play 3 players worth of crap.
I can definitely see what you mean there, Andy.
Yeah, because if it's like, a 2 to 4 and there's a lot of stabby going on, then yeah, pretty much I attack you and that takes us both out of the game.
Yep.
So player C wins by default.
Serve it up. That's right. 3 Kingdoms had some really cool stuff to deal with that, in terms of the alliance.
I never did play Churchill. I heard that was really good.
It is, yeah. It has a very neat 3-player.
I love Churchill.
Yeah, I played it once. Thought it was a really cool system. I mean, really did. Like, really dug it. You're trying to sort of maneuver issues. They're like issues that can either be sort of in a neutral spot or towards, either any one of your three spokes. Does that sound accurate, Trent? Would you describe it using that terminology potentially? Does that at least encompass it?
Yeah, I often feel like it's a 2-on-1 game where the 2 keep changing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you stick with the 2-on-1 for too long, basically the other guy in the 2-on-1 will probably win. So eventually you want to turn on him.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think that's basically what 3 Kingdoms does. It just directs that movement. And the problem with a lot of 3-player games is if you're not, I think most 3-player games assume you're going to be doing that, but then don't really give you any clues to figure out at what point you should be smacking the other person around. So it just ends up like 2 people attacking each other, and they're like, oh, we're really invested in attacking each other. Oh, wait, how did you just end the game to win?
Yeah, it's like stabby and a bunch of like vendettas. And yeah, that can happen, certainly. Well, we'll see what Donning the Purple has to offer, and unfortunately TC is not going to, he has nothing to say right now, but that's because he's he's busy telling everybody how to somehow fit into the store space that he has for the Keyforge tournament he's running, which sounded like they were expecting 6 to 8, and all he had to say was "wow." So I'm assuming that means
like it's 16 to 18 or something. He got like almost double or a little over double what he expected.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which, yeah, was great. Keyforge certainly is pleasing a lot of people that are looking for that sort of, deck experience type game, like a CCG style game, but without the secondary market.
Yeah. I tried to get Keyforge at Walmart, but they just sent me back to the automotive department.
Yeah, Keyforge sounds like maybe it would be something illegal, Andy, because it makes it sound like you're looking to, it sounds like a lock picking,
Oh, yeah. Did I tell you, I don't know where I saw this advertisement, but it was basically it's like a train at home lock picking course where they send you examples of common locks that you can learn how to pick, and they give you all the tools for it. I'm just like, this seems like a really bad idea. Yeah, it does. It's like, learn how to be a practicing surgeon in the comfort of your own home. Don't worry, son.
Don't worry, son. That's what you said, Andy?
Yeah.
I think hopefully, Andy, our connection is good and stable. I think I missed a word or two of what you said there.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It'll be interesting to see what it does because we just had the whole internet line replaced in our house.
Okay.
Because that's what MediaCom supposedly said is the problem. So we're kind of seeing in the next couple of days what'll happen. Because I'm either it fixes it or I got to the point that tech support didn't know what to say anymore, so they just blamed whatever wasn't in their control.
Yeah, pretty much. It's it couldn't be on my end. I've done everything.
Yeah, that's exactly. That always happens with tech support is if you get to a difficult enough problem, they're just it's probably this, but I can't do anything about it. You'll have to call this company.
Yeah. I've reached the end of my rope, the end of my expertise. Certainly.
Or the end of my fill in the blank computer program that tells me what to say next.
Yeah, I definitely have had a lot of very good at working at their job. There's a lot of times those tech support people run you through these steps, and I turn into that person, Andy. I'm like, oh, you want me to do that? Oh, and sometimes you say you want me to restart my computer? I've already done it. And have you actually, how many people have lied about having restarted their computer to their tech support person?
Oh, see, but the problem is with MediaCom is they don't even let you get to a human being. The automated robot lady tries to run you through those steps.
Mm-hmm.
And it drives me insane. So I'm much happier now that I found out the key to get past any of those robots is just hit 0 a lot of times.
Yeah. They now have it set up to where they know that if you're just smashing 0, you're you want a person.
Yeah, and I'm to the point now when I call, I don't want to deal with the robot. So before it even starts, if it goes enter, I just start hitting 0.
Yeah.
I don't even play around with it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. All right, well, Andy, are you ready to go here with 10 games? No? Okay, well, we're going to have to come up with a topic, but we'll have to do that after the start of this episode. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. I'm joined tonight by the special guest of this episode. He's doing a top 10. His name is Andy Dennison. How's it going tonight, Andy?
Pretty good. I took a nap.
Well, that's nice. Trent, were you able to take a nap here today as well? We've got Trent Ham also joining me here to talk about Andy's top 10 games.
No, see, I actually have a job.
Oh. Ooh, shots fired. Shots fired.
It happened to be a light day, and my wife had to record for her class in the afternoon, so I'm like, I can quietly take a nap. That's how I will not interrupt her.
Yeah, well,
are you sure that the snoring didn't?
Yeah, usually as long as I'm in a different room, it's fine.
well, Andy, you're nice and rested, and that's good because we're going to be leaning on you here to give us your top 10 games of 2018, the last calendar year. And this is Andy. Would you just quickly explain how you define 2018?
Or you want me to do that, or do you guys want to do your reviews first? Then I'll kind of do that and transition into it.
Well, yeah, of course, but anyway, Andy's 2018 is a loose term for Andy. Is all I was getting at. Andy sometimes gives us games from maybe 2003 might pop up on that list. It just depends on.
Hey, no, the earliest one's 2013. I looked, and there's only one. The rest are 16 or higher.
And this is okay if you look at a 3 and you do a symmetrical, like imprint of it. It certainly looks like an 8. So 2018, 2013, Andy, I get it.
Well, and I played all of these games traveling at odd relativistic speeds. So they were actually all played when they came out in 2018. Because I kind of wrecked the space-time continuum there. So
I got to thinking for a second that you were talking about like reprints and stuff, and that there was actually they were 2018, and I thought nope, nope. Andy's choosing the games Andy's choosing. So look forward to that, folks. Like you said, Andy's going to let us, meaning Trent and I, review some games to start out this episode. Before that, thanks to the folks at GameSurplus.com for bringing the world of board games our way, and they can do the same for you. If you check them out at GameSurplus.com, there's coupon codes where you can find podcast picks. A lot of the newest stuff that you can find is there on the website. The New Frontiers, unfortunately, was sold out last I looked, but the game you can look forward to me hyping here, the new Race for the Galaxy game, you can check out and see if Carmen's getting that back on his shelf, because, man, that thing, I feel like that game had one copy sent everywhere because that's how quickly it was out of stock. It was out of stock before I even saw it go in stock. It was that quick. So anyway, check back momentarily, regularly if you're looking for that, because Carmen does a great job of keeping things in stock as best he can. And thanks as well to Elaine for her work with that with the Enterprise. GameSurplus.com, bringing the world of board games to you. All right, Trent, why don't you kick it off here with a game I can't wait to hear about, simply because I'm expecting, just from what I've seen from others that have reviewed this game, there might be a little bit of comedy somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong, but take it from here, Trent.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Discover Lands Unknown. It's a game recently published by Fantasy Flight, designed by Corey Kaniska. The interesting thing about Discover Lands Unknown is that it's a unique game. Every single copy of it in the world is different than every other one. It's a similar process to what they did with Keyforge, except with this one, basically there's a large number of modules that exist in their production process, and your copy contains some number of the modules that happen to work together. I don't really know all the details of the back end, other than the end result is that every copy is unique. I know that there are a lot of different copies out there that function slightly different ways, and I'm mostly going to be talking about how my copy worked. So in general, every copy of Discover Lands Unknown is an exploration game that I would describe as a very light version of Robinson Crusoe. And I mean very light.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah, it's so like you're playing it's a multiplayer game. You wouldn't play it with 2 to 4 players. You could play it solitaire if you wanted, but it's clearly intended to be played with like 2 to 4 players as a co-op. There is a PvP scenario, but it's one that you unlock at the very end, and because there's like an ongoing campaign over these 4 scenarios that come in the game, or overarching storyline, and there are several different general storylines that different copies have, but ours is of a reality TV show like Survivor, is the storyline that is told as you play the game. Okay. So the game is very story driven. There's like if you played Eldritch Horror or Arkham Horror the card game or something like that. There's a series of acts you go through in each scenario, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, where these things unfold and they change a little bit of the rules of the game. But mostly all you're doing is you go from tile to tile, and so all these, you're on one tile at the start of the scenario, there's a whole bunch of face down ones around you. Each tile has like 10 to 12 hexes on it. When you go to the new tile, it flips over, and when it flips over, you have to generate some unique tiles face down on it that are like hidden events, and then you go to those and find out what they are. The problem is like there isn't. You would think with a game like this and the way they designed it, I'm trying to think of a polite way to say this. You'd think in a game that the way they designed this, there would be a lot of branching, interesting things that would happen. But in fact, basically every scenario is extremely scripted. And you wouldn't think that given the idea that these are all dynamically generated. But I think what you have is you have a handful of scripts for the first scenario and a handful of scripts for the second scenario. And you're getting one of those handful of scripts for scenario 1, and one of them for 2, and one of them for 3, and one of them for 4. And that's just what you play through. And there isn't a whole lot of branching on them. I mean, you get a different animal to hunt in the first scenario. I could see that being different from box to box. I understand that. But in essence, all you do is you move around, you flip over tiles, you move to the exploration spots, you find out what's there, you read the card. And then you go to the next exploration spot and you read the card. We never felt at all like under any sort of pressure. And I kept rereading the rules to think, is this supposed to be harder than this? And it really isn't. I really reread it. It just feels like you just go exploring. There's no real pressure of anything other than, I mean, you can theoretically die if you just sit there and keep having really bad die rolls. But, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I think this is just intended to be a really light game. It felt to me, I'm going to tell you my honest opinion on this. It feels like this is a proof of concept for how a unique game could work rather than a finished game itself. But they put so much work into getting this proof of concept done that they felt the need to publish it. That is honestly my take on this game. I feel like they've got the backbone here for something that could be really, really cool and interesting. But the game itself that they did as their proof of concept's a really, really, really simplistic game. Like, my 8-year-old was basically bored by it, to be honest.
Wow. An 8-year-old being bored by it. Now, your 8-year-old, though, Trent, is exposed to a lot of games.
I was probably not fair comparing him to a normal 8-year-old that would sit down and play because he plays a lot of games.
Right. Everyone else should buy it for their 5-year-old.
My 8-year-old got my 8-year-old is the kind of 8-year-old that got over $500 at the end of modern art. So he knows what he's doing with games. He's not. But the thing is there's not much to do. You go from spot to spot. My daughter got probably the most amusement out of our last game of this because she spent the entire game trying to hunt down a moose that seemed to be unkillable because she kept getting bad die rolls, and she made kind of a joke about it. That was probably the most fun she had in the game. I mean, what I'm saying is what's mechanically there is fine, but is extremely light. Extremely light. There's no pressure on you to do anything. There's no real decisions to be made. You just kind of go to spots and read what's on the card. And that's all there is. There's nothing more.
Well,
so,
Trent,
I mean, that's my review of it. It's like, I would describe it as a choose your own adventure. And that's where I leave it. That's Discover Lands Unknown.
Potentially, that's something to sneeze at. I guess I'm sorry about that. It sounds like this is just not really doing it for you, and it's just not doing it for your family. You know, you're like younger gamers that should be more impressed by it. That it is just more about the silliness aspect. You know, I wonder if TC was here. You know, does the radio ghost of TC right now, is he saying, I'm gonna go get this game? Like this, like Trent has convinced me. But you certainly, Trent, have told me enough to know that that like you said, I'm gonna wait, or maybe it's best to wait until a real this game concept gets picked up and maybe turned into more of a compelling experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with what's there. It makes sense. you do get this vague sense of exploring, but there's no pressure on you at any point. I think the problem is that in the dynamic generation that they have, if they had scenarios that put some pressure on you, they could easily dynamically generate one that would just like be almost impossible. So I think they rolled it in the opposite direction too far and made them all very simple.
Huh.
That's my feeling. I mean, I don't know what went on in the design process here. So, but I feel like the backbone, there is enough of a backbone here that something interesting could be built on the idea. But this isn't it.
So to compare it to, like, say, Keyforge, which has kind of a similar bold strategy in how it's being distributed as a whole bunch of unique experiences, this just is a cool concept that's able to be executed, but the simplicity of its systems almost shows that maybe the design just is not quite there.
Yeah, I feel like this was a proof of concept for a design system, whereas Keyforge was already a complete game that they use that idea on to make it even more interesting.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for letting us know about.
So if you want an FFG completely unique game, Keyforge, no question. Don't even hesitate. Don't go with this. Go buy 4 Keyforge decks, and you'll have a way better investment.
The vote of confidence, huh? So that was Discover Lands Unknown from Trent, and I'd like to, before I review a game here, tell you about the Bridge City Board Gamers, our cardboard cohorts, and an excellent audio podcast program. There's 2 different programs they do: Cardboard in the Classroom, educational-focused gaming discussion, and Cardboard Conjecture, a review format that is based on incomplete information, coming to conclusions on incomplete information. So at least Norm's honest. So one of the few things Norm at the Bridge City Board Gamers, and if you ever get to check them out at their live recording, tell them that the Good Board Ugly sent you. You know, at the very least, he cannot apologize for that because that's what Norm is known for, apologizing. Check them out on iTunes, Bridge City. He's one of he's a Canuck up there who's telling us all about. He's always apologizing and then telling us how every game is like Crokinole.
I finally got around to listening to some of their episodes because I've been too busy. Yeah, it was hilarious. It was like I was sitting there going, man, if I go up there and play like some kind of game and I do my American style trash talking, they're gonna think I'm a horrible human being. They're just like, this game is crap. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it
was great.
It's gonna be like a wrecking ball hit their game group. But maybe someday. Still hoping to make that sort of a cardboard cohort meetup, but for now, you should go check them out at on their iTunes channel. That's Bridge City Board Gamers. And now I will review a game Trent has reviewed and a game which I played with Trent, which I look forward to hearing what you think about your continued play of this game. And I will just tell you about my first experiences with Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done is more of what I would call a faithful translation of Mancala into board game form. Mancala, the stones game where you pick up handfuls of stones and drop them, one at a time to try to, I believe, you're trying to sort of collect as many as you can. I forget what the point of Mancala is, but anyway, it's used here. Yeah, great. I don't remember Mancala. That makes me super credible. So,
have you ever played this game called Go? There's like stones.
And I hear it's really good, and people take it really seriously, so you should totally check it out. That's my review of Go.
It's more like Mancala is a better comparison than Mancala is what the mechanism is.
This new miniatures game called Chess.
Yes, it is the original miniatures game. So, yeah, the game I'm talking about, though, Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done, comes from Taste Your Minstrel Games. It's come out very recently. Trent had the beautiful, thick cardboard deluxe edition that had plastic miniatures together with screen-printed wooden tokens, which I preferred. But you know what? The plastic miniatures did not in any way make me go, oh, I wouldn't play with those. I just preferred the wooden tokens. They were nice. They were screen-printed. I like that Stacey Minstrel is heading in that direction. They used to do a lot of stickers, and I still have like the memories of stickering deluxe editions of New Orleans, which ended up not being worth the time I spent doing it, just from my own perspective. Anyway,
hey,
Crusaders.
That's bad. Get a block war game.
Yeah, the Black War Games can certainly be like that too. Lots of stickers, so many stickers, and the process it's never perfect. So the game I'm talking about though, Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. You are going to start with a similar setup to like a Mancala game where you've got a wheel of actions, every action of which has a certain amount of usually you start with 1 to 2 stones on every spot out of a 6 slice. They actually call them wedges. So there are 6 wedges in like a circular rondelle. And to take an action, you just pick up the whole handful, and that's how many times you get to do the thing that you're doing. So you pick up 3 pieces, and you always have to go clockwise. Unless you have a special ability, you have to go clockwise and drop them one at a time. And so the thing that you're taking an action doing is tied to a movement on a map and the increasing a mustering of armies to then be able to surpass the invaders that are like the tribes and barbarians that are on the board there for you to, of course, do the will, because Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. Apparently, the will is to take small discs that are located on the board and remove them from the board. And that makes that is the absolutely mundane description of what you are doing. You are fighting armies. They are like, what are they called again, Trent? They're like the Saracens, and they're these.
Yeah, they're just 3, I don't really know, tribes that you're trying to conquer, I guess. You're trying to convert to Christianity. I mean, this is honestly a historically difficult theme, let's be honest. The theme of this is the Crusades. You're part of a holy order trying to convert people, so...
Yeah, and really, like, when it comes down to it, this is a Euro game at its heart. It's, like nominally themed. The real Euro game at its core here is that you've got a puzzle in front of you. And a puzzle that becomes what seems to me organically develops a certain complexity, because when you take an action, you can either choose to take the action from the wedge that you're activating, or you can choose to flip any wedge to an advanced action, which will stay permanently advanced for the rest of the game. And then you can choose the pieces from any action and move them around. So you've got this sort of like, what actions you upgrade, because when you take an action to upgrade, it's sort of, you're spending an action to do this, but you can really get some nice flexibility out of the system because, when you think about it, if you're trying to use movement spots, if you're using movement and you've got all these action points based in movement, you only really need to move to the point where you're able to then take other actions to do things, but you can only move until you've upgraded the action. It's a very elegant system. You add to this variable player powers, almost all of which were focused somehow on elements that play with this puzzle of Mancala in front of you. To compare this to Trajan, because I know folks that like the Mancala aspect of Trajan. Trajan had colored Mancala pieces, and you were trying to sort of get these pieces to line up in specific recipes to essentially move this Trajan arc around and get like bonus actions. And it was all fueling this fairly, bunch of mini games on the board where you're just getting points in every spot. There's some areas of the game had, where they were interlocking in very interesting ways. Trajan is certainly a very appealing experience, especially to Stefan Feld fans. How I would compare, if you're looking for that out of this game, it's not that long of a game. It's not nearly the dry, complex, systems, a bunch of exterior systems that you have to learn with an interior system that connects them. Really, I feel like there is a board presence where everything is interlocked in a way that makes sense, and all of the actions in the game are tied to your sort of like increasing your board presence by preventing what's already there. By let's say making space for your own buildings by removing, sort of a neutral presence, and then it evolves your ability on a player board to then build more buildings of that type or take more actions more efficiently. It's super, super simple. I want to say simple. That's bad. To just say simple. It's intuitive. It makes sense. Your actions are limited to what you can really understand well, even on a first play. However, the depth to the system comes from the way that when you are manipulating this wheel, you're constantly increasing how potent these actions are, not only by the way that you're choosing which place to empty and where to go with it, but many times you've got a special ability that enables you some more flexibility within that system, or like sort of a stronger starting position. It's a very beautifully developed game that has variable player powers that work in a very, very cool way. And I feel like considering this game is it took about an hour playing it, and that was learning it. And Trent, we figured out while playing it that actually we should have been done like 2 or maybe 2 rounds early, or at least 1 round early, because we weren't taking as many points as we were supposed to for certain actions. And ultimately, that just makes me think this game is even more breakneck than I had thought, and I thought it was already fairly breakneck. It's a sweet little system, works very efficiently. Trent, what are you thinking as what are your comments to my reaction to it, and also what is your personal where are you at with your journey in this game?
It's a great thinky heavy filler is actually where I'm at with it at this point, because I played it again with the rules as correct, and I would say if you're playing with competent people, everybody's getting about 10 or 11 turns at most, and that makes the game
not very many.
No, it makes the game as short, so short that it almost falls into like the thinky filler category for me. It doesn't look like it, but I think that's what it is. And that's good because the rondel is really a nice little puzzle. And it has just enough player interaction because of the other people's knights that might slip into where you want to go, that you have to pay attention to what they might do and have to have backup plans, because if your plan is all centered around getting to this one, I've got to get to this one hex so I can get the free bank by conquering the Saracens there or whatever. Yeah. And then someone else goes in before you while your plan is wrecked. You've got to like think about that you can easily wreck other people's plans in this game. I really like it, but I said don't expect mega heavy out of it. It looks heavier than it is. When you start playing it, it's not. Like I said, I can almost call this a thinky filler that looks like it's a lot bigger than it is.
It's definitely got some wrinkles that I wouldn't expect from a game of this length, but at the same time, that puts it into almost that weird category, Trent, like you're talking about, which is a thinky heavy filler.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a thinky heavy filler that looks like it's more than that, and if you look at it and expect it to be more than that, you're going to be disappointed. If you go to it knowing that this is a heavy filler, a heavy thinky filler, you're going to like it.
I really think there's some appeal here. There's some real potential for appeal. If like Trent said, if you go into it expecting, like a solid, well-developed, well-oiled Euro experience that gets over in a surprisingly short amount of time. I'm right there with you on your continued place of it and how quickly this game gets going. So I
want to point out quickly in the chat that Murr refers to the game as quote streamlined.
Ooh, yeah,
I don't agree with him. But I'll just let Murr's point stand that it's streamlined.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, yeah. Andy doesn't hear streamlined as being well developed, well honed. Andy hears it as being that it doesn't have anything weird to like about it.
Yeah. Streamlined means that I can just go take a nap while people play that game.
Nice. Whoa.
Because I'll go to sleep anyway.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry. The reason Andy's taking a nap is because I'm actually slipping something. Just for the moment, Andy. We need you to be agreeable enough. So let us play some of the games that aren't your favorites. So
they don't have to be my favorite.
I developed it. The reason here in the Midwest that we get a reputation in the Northern Midwest for being like polite and nice. Is that it's something in the water here. We take it and it actually makes us pleasant. And Andy clearly hasn't been drinking his water for some time.
It's too much nitrates. Farm runoff.
Oh goodness! Yep.
It damages the rage centers of the brain. So we're just like, oh, it's good, yeah.
Goodness.
They need a farm runoff expansion for Agricola.
Well, if it was year 2018, it unfortunately would just never pop up on the top 10 list that you're about to give, right, Andy?
Not for 2000. Oh, Agricola. It might.
The Agricola reprint.
I would still put Agricola in my top 10 of all time. Period.
Well, it has 2 decks that have come out since. I mean, there's like the Bulbulcus deck. It has a picture of a bull on it, and I believe that's probably been out for a while. But I thought it was at
the
least
new
year
edition or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, talking about the new edition, of course. Like that's what there's games being made for the new edition. You know, there's like products being shipped for the new edition, at least in places where the publisher isn't in a sort of limbo state. That's kind of, you know, it sucks. R.I.P. Never forget Mayfair. Andy, this was all supposed to transition into your top 10.
Oh. All right, yeah. So if we go to my list, I did kind of like, since it's been a thing people have been doing, wrote a few surprises and disappointments.
Sure.
As well as my top 10 list, which is actually 10 games.
Yeah. So somebody, hey, Andy, you know what? I do not adopt the same numbering system. So I'm going to say that like my numbering system is the opposite of binary.
Yeah.
10 in my language, or in my numbering system, apparently is 25. So I operate on a 25.
The same like methods like American use for elevators that drives me nuts. So it's like, we have the basement, it's B. No, it's -1, for crying out loud. Our number systems go below 0.
Yeah. Well,
there's like a history museum in Germany where they have literally like math equations for the floors you have to solve.
Math equations when you're on a floor in a museum. Nice.
Yeah, like it's floor square root of 4.
That's like the next level. It's like a It's an escape room museum.
Yeah, that'd be good stuff. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, before. Yeah, even though I had a nap, it's still sleep deprived, so I might.
No, you're good, Andy. You're good, and I'm ready to hear your top games, as well as to welcome everybody here in the live chat, which is
Tony's here.
Been filling out here, Andy. It seems as though your top 10 games is bringing a few folks in. It's good to see from Tony showing up here, and we got some returning friends, which I know by their screen names.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
so quickly here, I'm going to do some things that kind of surprised me about my gaming in 2018, and what I found out. So number 1 was dice combat doesn't bother me as much as it used to.
I can't share that feeling, and I'm glad to hear that you.
But, as I played a few war games, I really wondered how I would react to that. And it's a non-issue. And it's not been that way for a lot of my gaming career. So,
I'm glad to hear that, Andy. If I was to say dice combat, I mean, when you say dice combat, you're talking about, the use of dice as in, actions that are tied to success with dice, probability, or battles that are tied to hits and misses based on like a D6. I think you're talking about that sort of a system. When you say dice combat, does that sound accurate?
Yeah, like basically to the dice resolves like hits, that kind of thing. Typically in the war game sense, not so much in like the roll 1d20 to throw a saving throw or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah. No, I get what you're saying. So more like the Risk than the D&D.
Yeah, but even then with the Risk, like it's got to be halfway decent in the sense that it's not just, I don't know. I still am not a big fan of like the exploding dice systems where it's like you roll a 6, roll another die, roll a 6, roll another die, and no. So let's see other surprises. How much 18xx has grown in the last year?
Ooh.
Like, when I first started playing those, it was still kind of in the weird, obscure world. Yeah. And like it seems like a lot more people know about it and a lot more people have tried them. Just GMT putting out 1846 and now 62. It's just like way more out there than it was even when I first started playing. And I kind of first started playing not super back in the day, but kind of before this wave of, them becoming popular hit.
I want to mention something really weird that happened to me recently that's relevant to that. I was at a social gathering that had nothing to do with games, and I was like talking to someone that I didn't know about what our various hobbies were, And like I told him that I liked playing board games, particularly longer strategic ones. And he's like, "Do you mean like 1830?"
Ooh,
out of the blue. And I was like, "We are now friends. We are now friends."
You have passed the test.
I was like, "Yes, indeed. I mean like 1830. That's a perfect example." Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that was pretty cool. To just randomly out of the blue, someone like 1830. I was like, yes.
It is like a rare moment to share with someone when you're like, "Oh, you get me."
Yeah.
Anyway,
usually it's the you play board. Oh, like Monopoly.
Mm.
I was afraid that's kind of where he was going, and then he busts out 1830, and I'm like,
Yeah. I had a rough one, like with my kids' friends' parents. Like, oh, we like gaming. We just got into Munchkin, and I'm like, please don't invite me over.
Oh, Andy.
I'll take over Chicago Express.
That would not be considered a surprise to hear you say that, Andy.
No. All right. Other surprises. The big one for me, actually, in the last year was people listen to me and apparently care about what I say.
No, hey, don't get too. Wait, hold on. I need some evidence here. There's going to have to be, Andy, there's got to be a scientific process. If you're going to have a theory that outlandish, that far-fetched, we're going to have to, we're going to debunk this by the end of the episode.
Yeah. It was just like, was it like when Luke, who's now on the Bridge City board game, is like, oh, I bought Wildcatters because of all the great things you said about it. I'm like, really? You care about what I say? Okay, great. I don't know. It's just weird because growing up in the nerd world, I'm just used to like people not caring about anything I say. So,
well, it's definitely some folks that listen to this podcast that tend to, I think, relate with you, Andy. And as strange as that seems to me, it's certainly there's folks that are here right now. So if you do want to chime in and say something positive, something about your experience with Andy, how Andy has changed your life, let us know at the Good Board Ugly Guild. We can come and talk about how Andy changed my life. The newest post is soon to come from the Good Board Ugly Guild on Board Game Geek, where you can come and
hilarious thing related to that. Back when I played World of Warcraft. I was talking to our guild master when apparently her niece came in, and she's like, "Is that Daddy on the video game?" She's like, "No, it's this guy in Iowa, but he's like as weird as your dad." And the little girl goes, "Nobody's that weird." So apparently there's at least one other person in the world whose brain works like mine, which is terrifying. But
it is a scary thought.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
2018, quite a year.
Yep. And then the other thing that kind of surprised me or whatever was I've been more surprised by games this year than I have in several years. And what I mean by that is like being sort of this horrendously logical person. Like I tend to probably over research games I'm going to play before I actually play them. And this year there's been kind of 3 games that have just taken me completely by surprise that I was just like, oh my God, this is good. And I didn't expect that.
Monopoly Cheaters Edition.
Yeah, Monopoly Cheaters Edition. Actually, one of them was Trent introduced me. Hands in the Sea was a big one there. Root caught me completely off guard. And weirdly enough, the Escape the Crate games that I've been letting you borrow, Joe.
Yeah, those games are really cool.
I was not expecting to enjoy them as much as I did. So, but so that was interesting. And then like I had a couple disappointments. And so I'm going to say something slightly political, but not related to the government. But disappointments was one of the big ones for me this year was just kind of hearing about the struggles of women in the board game community. Like I feel like that has not been really brought out into the light of day until the last year. And I feel sorry for them. And I don't know, when I joined Board Game Community, it seemed very accepting and great. And, you know, I tend to assume the best in communities and people until I'm given cause to think differently. I still assume that of most people within the hobby, but yeah, just, you know, treat women like human beings, people. It's not that freaking hard.
No. Yeah, be respectful and yeah, try to keep an open mind and be welcoming towards people. And also, you know,
in general, but just women in particular, it seems.
Well, I would say, Andy, what I was going to say to that is, I know that you mentioned it as a disappointment, but I think that the fact that we're hearing about it, that it's getting some summit, some level of summit I mean, there's sort of like a silver lining to take from it, and that is that, you know, now that we're hearing about it, certainly
about it, yeah,
it's you know, the people that are listening here, you know, like we're not the ones that would be doing that behavior, but we are the people that could stand up to it.
Right.
At least, you know, I would not ever assume that anybody would do, you know, the type of hostile behavior towards somebody, you know, due to something like the, you know, the fact that they don't exactly look like somebody that you think is going to play your games.
Right.
So, you know, letting people, you know, like letting people surprise you. And also being there to stand up for people in that situation, Andy, I think is one of the best things that can come from it. And I hope that certainly is something that, you know, like the silver lining in what is, you know, it's a frustrating and difficult situation, but, you know, it's not falling on the deaf ears.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into it, but it's just kind of a thing, you know.
Yeah.
I have a platform, and it's worth saying something about.
It is, absolutely, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, Andy, and I think that was a very tasteful way of putting it. So,
yep. And the other disappointment for me was roll and write games, because I don't know, like in the sense that like I haven't really hated any of them, but like everyone's been all sort of crazy on roll and writes. Like, there's been a lot of them coming out this year, and everyone's like, oh, they're so good. And I played them. I'm like, you're seeing something I'm not. Because it's not that I would turn them down. It's just like they haven't been that interesting to me yet.
Yeah.
And I've only played a few, so that could change. But so far, the ones I've played are like, they're fine.
Okay.
But that's kind of where I stop with them.
I get what you're saying, Andy. I think that you know, when it comes down to it, seeing roll and write pushing outside of like just being, you know, like
it's not Yahtzee.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I mean, even Yahtzee, when you compare Yahtzee to the other mass market board games that are out there, I do think there's more to that system. You know, that sort of push your luck system. I think there's something to it. You know, I do think that Yahtzee was a tastefully designed game when it came out, even though it is kind of, you know, it's you know, it's about that push your luck aspect.
Yeah. Although the triple Yahtzee one they have is actually a little more interesting because you got like 3 columns and you can choose where to put it.
Yeah, I think though that Andy, that's kind of where my thoughts on roll and write are, like what you just said. That not so much that roll and write is like gonna take the world by storm, but rather that that roll and write is getting like a significant amount of, you know, sort of like titles that we're seeing released, and it's actually starting to push into being, you know, like a game system, or at least a, you know, sort of like it's working its way into being something where people can kind of feel comfortable, and each of them offer something different. I'm thinking that like Steamrollers specifically took like a roll and write system and actually made it into, you know, like a midweight Euro is what I would say. You know, like the Euro system was there. I think that it was like pushing into like this medium category where I wasn't exactly expecting it to. So I understand what you're saying. Just giving a little bit of a counterbalance point, because you know,
absolutely.
It's there's certainly like
and
nothing
this could
magical.
Totally just be a me thing. I just, you know, when I hear a lot of people get excited about it, I naturally tend to get excited, and then I play it, and I'm like, all right, well, you like it, and that's all well and good. So, you know, I'm not saying they're horrible games and that people shouldn't play them. They didn't like hit me to the same level they seem to have hit a lot of people in the board game community. So on that level is a disappointment, but we are talking like a fairly minor disappointment here.
Why is Andy wrong about this? Tell us in the chat if you're here, or tell us, like I said, Good Board Ugly Guild. Yeah. Is that all your disappointments, Andy?
Yes.
Is that all you had to be? Well, that's not too bad then, man, for 2018. I mean, that's you know, just a couple of I can see
in the board game community. Other disappointments, I put it TMI. So I'm trying to
thank you for that.
Things that people use called filters that I've been lacking for a long time.
Really? So Andy's maybe Andy's got like some sort of a New Year's resolution, but just it's cool. It's a nice initiative, Andy. I wonder how long it lasts.
Yeah. Until I start talking about intestinal bacteria during a podcast, so we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We're there now, Andy. You just took us right there, dude.
Yeah. So, oh God, now I can't remember any. That's sad. Never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Okay, Andy. What's next? What's next? Was there surprises, disappointments? Are we ready for the actual list?
Yeah, and just to like re-clarify real quick once again how I went about making my list, because I tend to follow fairly niche games, like diving into war games, train games. I haven't played as much as sort of like the medium and even into the heavyweight Euro crowd as I used to. Mm-hmm. And so that made it really hard to stick to just 2018 as a benchmark. Sure. I originally tried to do that, and I got about 4 out of 10 games. So,
well, it does make sense when you say it that way, Andy. That like as your taste profile is like sort of expanding, shifting, changing directions with the wind. I might add.
Yeah, and just that I don't play as often as a lot of people just because of family time restrictions. So I tried to keep it at least reasonably close to 2018 as I could. I got, I think, only one that is older than 2016. Most of them are 16 through 18. And that I've played at least a couple times. The other thing I kind of didn't do is I didn't hold prototypes as part of it. So I tried to stick to games that, like I said, I played mostly in 2018 enough to have an opinion on it. I didn't discount reprints if this was the first time I had played those. So there could be reprints in there and things like that. So it's kind of more of a games I played in 2018 rather than, best games of 2018. It's kind of how I did it. So that was my criteria. But it definitely was not a top 10 games of all time kind of list. It was very much recent, like that I've played in the last year.
Very cool, Andy. So to announce your top 10 list, we have the original top 10 announcer from The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly here this week. I'm glad that you're joining us, Trent, and I hope that you can do for Andy what you've done for so many in the past as we've done top 10s, and that is to get us all kind of at that sort of it's the ASMR part of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, where if you put your ear up to your earbud, or if you put one earbud on your close to your heart and then one in your ear, you'll get the full experience from Trent announcing Andy's top 10.
Number 10.
Thanks.
On number 9, I expect Soprano. All right, moving on.
Number 10.
So number 10 for me was Teotihuacan, or I don't know how to say it.
Teotihuacan made it onto your list. Nice, Andy. Cool.
Yeah, and it's really weird because people have asked me what I thought about this game. It sounds like I'm really bad, saying bad things about it when I say it's like the one Euro game I'm actually interested in playing this year. Because for the most part, like Euros are not as interesting to me as they used to be. But this game is actually really crunchy. It's kind of a worker placement with dice, but you don't roll the dice. And it's got a really interesting puzzle and enough interaction to be a little bit more interesting. And so I put it on my list for my number 10. But yeah, like I still don't own it because I had limited budget, and you can't find it anywhere right now, as far as what I hear. But yeah, Teotihuacan, very solid game. to me, this is better than like most of the Euro games that have come out in the last 3 years. Like this one stands atop those. So I've really had a good time with this, and it's a game me and Joe can play together without one of us feeling like we're caving.
That is a very special, the Venn diagram of me and Andy certainly intersects at this game, and I'm glad that it does. I love Teotihuacan as well. Mm-hmm. I think, Andy, that's what you said about it, that the way that it's like a Euro that you're willing to play tells me that it's got something there special, something into the way the game involves just like sort of a starting off. And I feel like there's just so much strategy. There's so much that you can see coming from this game. It gives you just quite a bit of control here. And, like the way that you are going to be trying to plan actions around just like acquiring lumps of resources and then busting them out into, building the whole temple that just imposes on the rest of the board because of these beautiful dominoes that create like a spatial puzzle unlike anything I've really seen. Very cool title, Andy, and glad that you're enjoying it as well. Yeah,
no, it's a good one. It's definitely I can highly recommend that, even amongst a lot of the games I wasn't that interested in this year. But yeah, no, it's a very solid. I think this, it'll be interesting when you guys over there at the Longview do your look backs. I'm thinking this game's going to stick around for a while.
Very much so. Trent.
I haven't played it.
Oh, you haven't played it. Okay, cool. Well, too bad. Yeah, and we got to try this one for you.
Yeah, there's not much for me to say. I haven't played it yet.
Is this one on the slow boat for you? Didn't you order a copy?
Mm-hmm. I pre-ordered it a long time ago, and it still hasn't shown up. So
I've heard that's happened to more than one. It was one of those, like, I don't think the publisher realized how popular it was going to be situations.
Yeah, I played like 2 rounds of it at Gen Con, which wasn't nearly enough to get any sort of assessment of it, other than I was interested. I decided to pre-order it because I found it online at a good price. It still hasn't shown up. That's where I'm at with that game.
I think it took me about a third of a game for things to start clicking just a little bit. But yeah, no, it actually is not. There's a lot of depth to it, but it is not as complicated as it looks by just looking at the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my number 10.
Number 9.
Number 9, I put down as 18 Lilliput. So I guess the big thing. So this is kind of like an 18xx card game where you generate the map using cards, so it's not pre-done for you. It does its actions through kind of a card drafting action selection mechanism. And then you have kind of your special powers and characters you can get that basically take the place of privates in your standard 18xx game. There's been a lot of controversy about this game sort of within the 18xx community as to whether they like it or not. I know Trent and I have talked about it, and I really think it's going to boil down to whether you like the action selection mechanism or not.
Yeah.
But what I found is I kind of think in some ways naming it 18, like trying to kind of put it in XX family might have been the biggest mistake of its marketing.
He should have named it 18 Troll.
Yeah. Well, it is, because I think if you get a lot of people that are just super 18xx gamers and that's all they want to do, they pretty much hate this game. I mean, outright dislike it. But if you're coming at it from a background of having been or Euro gamer to like it. And so I kind of look at it as it's a really interesting hybrid of the two. I play a lot of 18xx games. I still play a fair amount of Euro and other style games. And so that's interesting to me. I don't remember it. There was some complaints some people had of like, it's like an 18xx trainer to get your Euro game friends to play them or anything. And I don't know. I just don't feel it's like that. I think, if you approach, I approached this game with a very open mind. I kind of got in on the Kickstarter a last minute, And then weirdly for me, just didn't bother looking up anything about the game after that. Like I was just like, I'm going to get a copy and I'm going to look at it when I get it. And I was surprised. It was actually very interesting. The action selection mechanism didn't bother me, but I didn't go into it like trying to compare it to 1830 or 1846. And I kind of came at it like it's a card game with an 18xx component. And that's on that end, it works. There's a lot of interesting variants to add to it with terrain and things like that I haven't got a chance to explore yet. But this is a game I would happily. The other advantage is this is a game that you can bring to like a public game night, have a reasonable chance of getting it played. 30, which is probably not going to happen, and people are going to kind of enjoy it. Like it's when I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's also very portable. You know, and things like that. And there's ways to keep track of money where you don't have to lug around poker chips if you don't want to. But yeah, 18 Lilliput, I think it's a very solid game. And I think that it getting some bad press because I think too many people approached it and looked at it through the lens of 18xx. And I think that's a mistake with this game. If you look at it from the lens of being an 18xx player, I don't think you're going to like it.
Maybe there's wisdom in that perspective, Andy. The one that you just said. The wisdom is that if you go into an experience wanting it to be, you know, the same as another experience, wanting to see how it specifically stacks up against it, you know, that's maybe unfair to the game system in and of itself.
This is very much.
I was just saying, I'm a big fan of it. It was on my list at like number 5-ish, somewhere around there. Yeah, and it's awesome. I think it's a good intro. It's how I would prefer to intro 18xx to someone who's a medium weight Euro player.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it is like, you know, the other thing is like this is one you can travel with and actually play. But yeah, I think this game's kind of getting an unfair bad rap. I think too many people are not approaching it from what it is and are approaching it from what they think it should be. The best analogy I can think of is the people that really hate the new Star Wars movies. By and large, the people I know who have really hated them, they started out going, you know, they'd been dreaming about what a new Star Wars movie should look like for so long that if it didn't match their expectations, they were going to hate it. So it's kind of, they went in with too much baggage in their brain about what it should be. And I think 18 Lilliput, honestly, is suffering a bit from that as well. I think it's a very good game. It's a game I still intend to bring a lot, and I still want to play a lot. There's several things yet to explore with this game that I've only begun to scratch the surface of. As my uncle has said about Star Wars movies, every single movie since A New Hope has had people complaining about the latest Star Wars movie and how bad it is. Yeah. The only time they were really right was the Christmas special and the Ewok movies. Oh, dear God. I remember the Ewok movies, man. Oh. Let's throw in Star Wars and also mix in medieval magic. That will go well.
Like literal space wizards.
Yeah, no, it was no. It's
Jedi wasn't enough.
Jedi wasn't enough. No, it was bad.
And that was Andy's number 9, 18 Lilliput.
Yep.
Number 8.
So number 8 was the only one I had below 2016. It's a game I primarily played in 2018, and it is my actual entry on my list for 18xx because, by God, the 18xx is going to be on there somewhere. And I don't count 18 Lilliput really as 18xx.
I think that the 18xx community will appreciate that you just said that. So now you've gotten them all on your side. What are you going to tell them is your favorite game?
My favorite 18xx I played predominantly this year is 1862. 1862 is railways in the eastern countries, I believe. It's bananas. So, like I said, there's primarily two kinds of 18xx I like. Ones that are just like a freaking knife fight in a phone booth financially, or they threw in like everything but the kitchen sink. This is they threw everything in but the kitchen sink. There's like, not only is there trains, there's 3 kinds of trains that calculate revenue differently. Some it's by length, some it's by number of stops, some you have to have a port involved. That
sounds actually really interesting to me, Andy. That's like, I feel like if there was different types of trains and we weren't just all seeking to do the same thing, I could be pulled into that experience, even if it was a longer one, potentially.
Oh, yeah. It is a longer one, but it's got some nice variability to it, because if I remember right, there's like 20 companies, but only 16 will ever see the light of day. And you can like basically fund your company. You can make them, government funded, so they get all their money up front, or you can make them private funded where they're like incrementally paid for. You can merge them together. It's bananas. It really is. And then on top of that, they put them all on a map that, like, in most 18xx games, there's a somewhat of a build-up before you start punching each other, like, and getting involved. No, this map, there is no freaking space between points. Like, you are in each other's face right from the beginning. You also pay for all your tokens up front, so there's like just every bit of incentive for you to token the crap out of the map. And also in most 18xx games, when you put down a token, you can't token out a company that hasn't started yet, right? You can do that in this game. Just be like, oh, your company starts there, but you know what? There's no station room for it, so suck it. Yeah, it is truly bananas, and I really, really love it. But yeah, the way I describe it to people is like the designer said, what is every like common misunderstanding about 18xx rules people make, and let's make a game about those. 1862 is bananas. It has traditionally been exceedingly hard to get. I got my copy by basically, luckily, there was a company I look at in Europe that like found a few laying in the back of their warehouse. And so I just immediately bought one.
Okay, you were able to get a hold of it.
This was before, of course, GMT. So it doesn't bother me that much. $50-some for this one. So by God, I'm gonna play it.
Okay.
But if it sounds interesting to you, go check it out and get in on the GMT one, because they're going to do a quality print of it.
Okay, so you said that your copy of it is coming in a little bit choppy there, Andy. I'm going to try to sum up what I think I heard you say, which is that you found your copy. It's difficult, hard to find. You found yours from like some sort of a clearinghouse that just happened to find a couple of copies. But you're saying that GMT is doing a reprint, and to definitely get on board with that reprint, which is probably in the P500 system?
Yep.
Yeah, the only thing I slightly worry about is that everyone got 1846, and that's a pretty easy one to get into. And there's going to be a lot of people that are like, oh, well, let's get 1862. It'll be like 1846, and they're going to be freaking blown out of their mind. Like, it's an order of magnitude in complexity.
Like, it sounds to me like this game is going to start you off in such a fashion to where players are probably going to know within a round or two whether or not, they are cannon fodder or if they're the cannon, and it's probably going to be best then kept towards experienced 18xxers.
Yeah, this is a game you kind of want to understand what you're doing with an 18xx game before you play. Because it is literally just crazy. Like, it's possibly the craziest one I've yet played.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So and you mentioned that this is your entry in 18xx in the list.
Right. Yeah, there's no more 18xx's beyond this.
Okay. Well, that means that half of our viewers are now going to be like, okay, done.
Yeah, they're done with me. It's like, oh, he said a train game. Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough about that.
Onwards and upwards with number 7.
Number 7 is a game of why I said I have no rule against reprints. The Estates, reprinted here from Capstone Games, formerly known as Neue Jaime. This auction game, oh god, it's fun. And by fun, I mean awful in the best ways you can be awful. It's a very deep auction game. It looks all cute and cuddly with little colors and a neighborhood, but there's just so many horrible things you can do to people playing this game. You can legitimately win with a negative score. You can legitimately win with 0 and making everybody else have a negative score.
Let me tell you how you can lose at this game. You can lose this game
there's a lot of ways
with the very negative score, the most negative score that outdoes every other negative score, and you're the only negative score in the game.
Yep. For those people who haven't liked it, the most common occurrence I've seen is that they're not digging into the game deep enough. So what I mean by that is, like, this is the kind of game where it's not only smart to auction things you want, but to auction things somebody else wants.
I love that part of the game, but unfortunately, I once tried to play where I thought I wanted everything.
That does not work well.
It doesn't work at all. As a matter of fact, people kind of caught on to it and kept leaving me with like $1 because I would bid because I wanted to make sure that it sold for a fair price. You know, doing all your guys' dirty work and bidding them up, and then, oh, it's mine? What? I don't want this.
Oh, that was good times. Now, the best thing really in this game is where, like, you know, if, you know, you say, Joe, you won the color gray and you put a 4 out, and, you know, we're halfway through the game and, like, there's one column that's obviously not going to score, and I pick up your gray 6 and put it out and go, yeah, I don't really want this, but I know you don't want me to control it. So, yeah. There's delicious nastiness involved with this game.
I would have had this on my list, but I excluded reprints. This would have been very high on my list, like number 2, number 3, somewhere in there.
Yeah, like I said, I played it in 2018, so for me it works. But yeah, it's good. It really is good. Very simple rule set, actually, but there's a depth of reading the board state and what people are going to try to do. Yeah, it's good. It's really, really good.
Well, yeah, that was Andy's number 7.
Okay.
The Estates.
Number 6.
Number 6, actually, this game, when I went and like wrote down all the years for the games I had picked, I was kind of expecting this one to not be as recent as it is. But I put down my first foray into hex and counter war games, Conflict of Heroes Guadalcanal. I played several scenarios of this with Trent. It's really, it's a very interesting entry into a nice hex and counter war game of you're going to be maneuvering around. There is going to be dice combat. Things can go bad. The thing I like about this game is, you know, one, it's very tactical. So, and it's very, you know, for the most part, easy. The way Academy Games works you through the system, you know, each firefight you play layers on a little bit more complexity to it. And it's just amusing how the game incentivizes you to play historically rather than, should I say, intelligently. Because I was playing, you know, I've primarily been playing the Japanese in this while Trent was playing the United States. And almost everything in the Japanese things is incentivizes you to just do crazy charges at people. It's like, oh, there's a machine gun nest. Oh, God, but if I activate this unit, I have to basically charge the machine gun nest or I'm going to get penalties. Fine. But that, I mean, is not a bad thing because one of the critical things I've heard people make against several historical games is you play too smart or you play because you know all the information that nobody on the ground would have known.
That's true.
like the coordination would not have been that good. And so the way Academy Games has tweaked into this like Bushido system, as well as how you get your victory points, rather than kind of heavy-handedly telling you what to do, they've incentivized you to do things that were historically done by these different forces. So it's nice because you don't feel like you're forced to do it, but you kind of feel like you're choosing to do it, even though in reality you're kind of forced to do it. But no, it's been actually really fun. It's kind of a light intro Hex Encounter war game. I've had a good time with this. So that's Conflict of Heroes Guadalcanal.
I've been enjoying it too. It has been pushed to the side lately because I've been playing it consistently with Andy. It's been pushed to the side lately by games that I'm assuming are ahead of it on this list. So.
Yeah, probably, yes.
All right.
Yeah, very cool. That was your number 6, Andy?
Yep.
Okay, number 5.
Number 5 for me is Time of Crisis. So I actually bought this game in 2017, but I really didn't get it onto the table very much until 2018. So it's under my rules legal. So this is basically a light war game meets deck building. I've had a lot of fun with it. It's really interesting to see what you can do with the different combinations. I was kind of wondering for a while all about the randomness involved with it and barbarians and this and that. And then about that time, I was also listening to the History of Rome podcast. And so they got to the time period where Time of Crisis takes place. And then I was like, oh, no, that's all appropriate. God, that was a crap time to be alive in that part of the world. I don't know. This is a game like I really want to play more. I really want to experience more of the system and what you do with it and how you go about it. I know the expansion is going to be coming out this year, and the expansion is supposed to, I think, double the card pool you can use, as well as like causing you to decide if you're going to have more of a peaceful stay in Rome emperor, or, are you going to have a Julius Caesar that leads in the army or that kind of thing. So just up the complexity just a hair of a notch to make it a little bit, more closer to medium is my guess. I mean, other than that, this is a fairly light on the war game spectrum, probably light medium from the normal game spectrum. But yeah, I'm surprised I liked this as much as I did. And that was one of the things that led to my surprises of not really caring about dice combat that much. Generally, I found that people that get a little bit too irate about the game, they're getting too married to holding on to their territory. When in reality, sometimes you just do abandon an area and go do something somewhere else and take it that way. Which, after listening to the History of Rome podcast, also very thematic. We're just like, this went to crap. Okay, I'm going to Egypt for a while. But anyway, that's Time of Crisis. Originally published in 2017 by GMT Games. But really, for me, it was 2018 before I really ever got to experience it.
Cool. I've said in the past quite a few things about Time of Crisis, so I'm gonna just leave this one hanging, Andy. I guess I wasn't prepared to encounter this one on your list because I didn't realize that you had played it in 2018 specifically.
Yeah, I thought of it as 2017 too, so I'm kind of surprised to hear it. That doesn't mean it's bad. That's not what I'm saying. I love this game. I think it's fantastic. I was just surprised to hear it because
I don't think I played it until I had it in 2017, but I don't think I ever played it until after Christmas. At least that's what I remember. But I'm almost 40 now, in another month, so my memory's gone.
Wow. Well, geez,
pretty soon I'll have bifocals at game night. I'll have to have one of those giant lenses war gamers use to see the chit.
Yes, and those are helpful to me though. Those are helpful to me, as somebody that that might not be quite getting to a point. But I've got a big birthday coming up too, Andy. So
yeah. Oh, what do you got, 30?
Yeah.
Oh god, that's not a problem. It's like
oh sure.
No, seriously, like 30 I felt fine. It's like 32, 33 that you're like laying on the floor and you go to get up and you're like, okay, that never used to hurt. There's a delayed effect. But yeah, is it 30 is when it starts, but about 32, 33 is when you start coming up with the term used in How I Met Your Mother, the Murtaugh list.
Okay.
Which is from Lethal Weapon, the Danny Glover's thing where he always said, I'm getting too old for this S.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, like, you know, camping in a tent, laying on the ground, definitely on my Murtaugh list now.
Yeah, I understand. Well, where are we at right now? Andy's number
5.
And now we're on
Time of
to
Crisis. Yeah.
number 4.
Number 4 was one of the games that really surprised me in how much I enjoyed it this year. This one was introduced to me by Trent, actually. It's Hands in the Sea. Originally came out in 2016 is the publication date. I know it was a Kickstarter game, so I don't really know if it was, you know, in people's hands in 16 or was it 17. I didn't play it until, you know, just recently, and I've played several games of it with Trent, and yeah, this game's just really cool. There's deck building involved with buying cards and whatnot, but you have ways to control that deck. You can, you know, buy certain cards to let you draw more cards, or you have this thing called the reserve. It's basically kind of the spiritual successor to A Few Acres of Snow by Martin Wallace. You have like a reserve where you can put these cards so you can bring them out when you want to. You have an ability to buy cards straight into your hand, although it's like crazy expensive. There are some random events, which Trent and I seems... at least for us, it seems to be Carthage always gets the short end of the stick on that. even when it's a 50-50 shot, it's just like, okay, who's playing Carthage and how do they get screwed? At least on our end. There's a lot of asymmetry in this game, and so I could see where you could easily think it's unbalanced at the beginning. And that's something it took several games of Trent and me playing through, and literally us having like an hour discussion after each game of how the hell Carthage is supposed to win it. Because, yeah, it just seems like Rome has come down, kick your teeth in, and take everything. But what we kind of found out is that it really seems to be on Carthage to not let Rome get going. Like, if Rome starts building up its military, you're screwed. Like, you're done. But it's still really interesting, really crunchy, and there's a lot of ways to kind of go about getting things. They added in a sea battle component, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Hands in the Sea. Much of a bigger fan of this game than I originally thought I would be.
Yep, it's a really good. It's what I wanted A Few Acres of Snow to be.
Mm-hmm. And I'm playing that now with Joe, actually. So, like, it'll be interesting because since it's only one partial game, I haven't pulled it apart enough to really figure out the differences between the two and what they feel like. But yeah, no, Hands in the Sea. Yeah, I kind of expected to go into it like, okay, I picked all the games the last 3 weeks. I'll let Trent pick this one, and, you know, I'll see if there's anything to like in it. And then, like, a third of the way through, I'm like, oh my God, this is really cool. Like, I was legitimately surprised and excited to play it again.
Cool, man. Yeah, I hope to get a chance to try this one out.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Like, the one thing I don't know how you'll react is those random events, because, like, yeah, you can get some dice rolls that just make your life awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with it, so maybe it'd give me a chance to at least put on, you know, to at least put on the armor before dawning.
Well, the other thing is, I think a big trick to this is if you're going to be playing against an experienced person, the least experienced person should play Rome.
Okay.
because Rome, it's very straightforward in what you have to do. And it's just how are you going to manage it? Because Rome, it's just like build an economy, build an army, smash Carthage. And I think playing Carthage is a lot more difficult. After the first couple games, like Trent and I were really wondering if there was a balance issue and how the crap you win as Carthage. I think we got some ideas now, but we haven't gotten the game back to the table yet to test them.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, and that would be Andy's number 4, Hands in the Sea.
Yep.
Number 3.
Okay. First, I should say with 1, 2, and 3, these 3 games could all be number 1 depending on the night.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I had to come up with some kind of vague order to them, and I kind of did it based more on feeling than anything, because any of these games, yeah, these are top tier games for me. The first one, if I had had a chance to experience everything it had to offer, probably would be my number 1 game. But because of, haven't had good chances to get it to the table, it's at number 3. And that is John Company. The only reason I think this isn't number 1 is I haven't experienced the full game where you're running your own individual companies yet. I think if I can get to that point, this game would really jump up high on my, if I could get to that level, I think this game would probably be in my top 5 of all time. I really, really enjoy John Company.
Trent?
It's really fun. I've enjoyed every time I played it too. It's a good company simulation.
Yep. And it's just, I think the thing is the times we played it, we get too vicious early on, and then the company dies. And yeah, if you can get to the point where the monopoly gets revoked and then everyone's kind of running their own little thing too, like, I think that'll be just different. And still, like, this game just does things that I've never seen a game do. Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, we're onward and upward.
Yep.
Number 2.
Number 2.
I think I know what it is.
Root. Root is my number 2. Root is another big surprise for me. It's like one of those games where I'm like, I really, really got to stop underestimating Cole Worley. But it was his fix on basically a coin system game from GMT. And I wasn't initially interested because it didn't sort of have that historical flavor to it, which I've kind of grown to be more fond of in the last year or so. But Root is just all kinds of awesome. The factions are tremendously asymmetrical, more so than you would ever experience in a coin game. They're much more asymmetrical than that. The game plays at a very quick time as well. The only, I think, downside to Root that could be found is it's probably easy to get the wrong kind of person to play this game because it looks cute. It's like, oh, look at the little cute meeples and the birds and the little raccoon. And this game's freaking mean. Like, really mean. Like, basically you've got the mouse faction who are like terrorists. Like, let's get down to it. They're mouse terrorists. You've got beaver arms dealers if you get the expansion, is what I've heard them called. And
the lizards are like a bloodthirsty cult.
Yeah, exactly. And just like, and if you play the birds,
outcasts, hated outcasts.
Yeah, like, yeah, they hit it, and then the birds, like, you just come out of nowhere and just like start ripping everything to pieces to reclaim your kingdom. And they cast.
And there's a raccoon that runs around and steals your stuff.
Yeah, steals your stuff. Helps some people. Like, the raccoon's a dick. Until he's not. But anyway, yeah, it definitely, I think this game more than anything would make the coin system appealing to a wide group of people. It was way solid, And I think it even maybe expanded upon some things that make the coin system really great, that being sort of the asymmetry of everything. I'm kind of hoping maybe that they'll introduce even more factions in the future to try. I need to play it, but I don't know if you guys saw it, but they came out with a Halloween scenario. And like literally it's for like 3 players instead of 4, and you move the raccoon around and he's going trick-or-treating. And it's, you basically stack.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like you basically stack cards on the raccoon that you can pull out later and do horrible things. So like if you move the raccoon into an area, you have to be like, is the raccoon doing a trick or does he want a treat?
I think what you just said, Andy, outlines that this is a very much a design sort of achievement. You know, first and foremost, I must respect it as a design achievement, but it works as a game. And that's what, that's like everybody that tries to sort of take the systems here, which feel somewhat fragile, they feel like well-formed, but fragile. And which, makes me as a player, try to like, let me pick this up and see if I can bash it. Let's see what I can hit with it and see if it maintains its shape. And I think that, when you've got everybody kind of trying to take their extremely well refined and, it's almost like you can see the features in the marble, in the chiseled marble, to see how it actually does work as like a, just you're fighting each other. And I've seen every faction, I feel like, wins in a way that feels like it was immediately a good strategy, a good, a good initiative, a good aggressive venture. And it just somehow, I don't know, I feel like I'm always impressed by the win. And that's something that I think is really incredible, because, Root has so much, like you said, that cuteness factor underneath here. This is a coin system. This is a asymmetrical multiplayer experience that is really special, very well developed. And I think, Trent, how can you say much more than putting it at your number one?
Yeah, it was my opinion the best game I played this year. And in terms of more factions coming out, my gut feeling is they're just going to do a standalone Root game, which is basically just going to be 2 maps and four factions that are intercompatible with the old stuff. That's my prediction.
That would be good, though.
That's what I think they're going to do.
It's pretty exciting. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things echoing. I think right now, and I'm not sure how much of it is fans hoping to see more, and how much of it is real confirmed existence of things. But it's exciting, and the fact that there's that many people that are that driven, to want to make and create things for this game is pretty exciting as well.
Right.
That was Andy's number 2, Root.
Number 1.
Yeah. Number 1, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. But my number 1 game I've played this year is This Guilty Land by Hollandspiel.
Aha!
Yeah. So This Guilty Land kind of blew me away as a game, and not necessarily in good ways. Because this game is basically sort of like a treatise on the conditions and politics that allowed the institution of slavery to exist within the United States. So it's very much a political game. So it's not like Freedom the Underground Railroad, where you're trying to like stop the slave catcher and do this, that, and the other thing. And that this is very much the politics, and kind of the impetus of this game is that the Civil War was inevitable. That the 2 forces in the game, they're labeled oppression and justice, that these 2 forces can never coexist with each other, because there is a faction that starts out the game called Compromise, and you have essentially compromise leaning justice, compromise leading oppression, and that's going to change as the game goes on. But let me kind of tease apart the 2 things about this game, because I want to be very clear why it's a number 1 game for me, and kind of why I would label as that. First of all, like I said, the theme is really dark, like, slavery, if you don't do that right in a game, it's going to be really bad for you as a designer in a company. I mean, just look at the lovely Five Tribes as an example of when you don't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So this game is very, very smart, done right, and not gonna kid glove you about it. Like even the box cover, that the image on it, very provocative. Like it's gonna be in your face right from the beginning. So thematically, it's interesting because it will force you to have feelings. Like the only way I think you're gonna not have feelings about this game is if you're a psychopath, like legitimately. So I know, for example, when Trent and I have played it, I was playing Oppression, and for a while I was just trying to work out the systems of the game, which I'll get to in a minute. And then once all the systems started making sense to me, I really stopped and looked at the cards, the artwork, and the names, and what it was I was really doing to try to aim. And I'm just like, I feel awful. Like I should not feel good about winning right now. Whereas I think Trent has said before, like he felt almost a moral imperative to win the game. So it will cause feelings. Like it's just one of those games that's going to do that. It's going to be really hard for someone to play this and not have feelings about what they did or what it is. And frankly, anyone who did, I would be worried to be around. Because literally, I don't know how you would play a game like this and not have some kind of feeling out of it. It's almost kind of a weird societal art statement in that way. Kind of like I've known some other artists who use games to basically provoke emotions and thinking and to get you, to see things from a different perspective. And this game did that for me in a way that games usually don't. Because as much as I try to be kind of a nice, jovial individual, the way my brain processes information is just shy of a Vulcan. Like I'm a super logical, sequential person. So it's very rare that I play a game that emotionally affects me. This game did that. And not in a just rage quit kind of way, but an actual, pulled emotions from the depth of my being and made me wrestle with them. So I think as kind of a statement on history and art in society, this game does that very, very well. Now to the mechanics, this is a primarily 2-player game. And if I'm looking strictly at mechanics, it legitimately might be my favorite 2-player game ever. Every action you take is granting the ability to respond to it. So you get like these things called political power points, and playing your cards is going to cost you a certain amount of political power, and then in most cases cause you to cede more political power to your opponent. Representing kind of like, oh, look, you got this law through we really hate. Okay, let's rally up the base and, get things moving. In politics, typically anger motivates people. In the way the board is set up, it's just graphic design wise is done very well. I found I really like these games that are like a war game through politics. So to kind of win and get laws and do that, you're trying to take over these various regions that will basically change your status within the House and the Senate, which is going to allow you to pass or not pass laws that are going to get you victory points. As the forces of oppression, it also is way more asymmetrical than you think it's going to be. Because when you start with oppression, they accumulate almost all of their points throughout the game. Like they have virtually no end game scoring. So as the force of oppression, you really want the game to end quickly. You want, to get your laws through and everything before like the populace has time to think about all the god awful things this really means for, the society of America. And if the game goes long, typically justice is going to win because they have much more ways to make people think in line with them. Because, by and large, during even the time of the Civil War and prior to it, there's quite a few people that understood the institution of slavery does have to end. Like, there's no way this can persist. And there was no way that the South and North were ever going to see eye to eye on it. Those were just incompatible viewpoints. So like the victory condition of this game is the Civil War happens. Like this horrible bloody conflict happens. The way you kind of abstract what your ending is who ended up winning the Civil War and kind of by how much. So when I first played it with Trent, we actually kind of got the historical outcome in our minds, in that Trent won the game, but not by a whole lot. So the Civil War happened, and it was a really knockdown, drag-out, bloody affair for everyone. I actually solitaired, kind of playing both sides of it today, and Justice mopped the floor with oppression. And I was really trying to stop. Like, I would play one side and go away for a couple minutes and then play the other, so I wasn't trying to accidentally change things a certain way. But yeah, because Justice gets almost all of their points at the end of the game. And so you're trying to do, with oppression, you're trying to pass laws as quickly as possible to accumulate in-game points. With Justice, you're trying to sway other people to your view. But you kind of got to get involved in both of those things, because otherwise whoever does their thing the best is definitely going to win. And it looks like you could be running, like when I was playing Oppression, it looked like I was running away with the game. But when we did final scoring, Trent beat me by 1 point. It's just the game design is super smart. The graphic design, which I actually think was done by Cole Worley as well. He handled the graphic design on this one, is super smart. The artwork helps to bring out the emotions of the topic being dealt with without being crude or crass about it. And I think this is a game that should be played, I think, and looked at and examined as a way of, thinking about the troubles in our culture, our society, and ourselves, and what that means. And I realized to a lot of people that does not sound like a fun experience. This is not one of those games that's going to quote unquote make you feel fluffy. But I like that kind of thing. I like talking about deep, difficult subjects that cause me to change my worldview. So to me, this kind of game is unbelievably good in what it seeks to do. It caused me to experience something, to enjoy a system of mechanics, and to think about our past and how we got here as a country, and maybe in some ways how little we've progressed compared to what we should. The game is making a statement, and I think it does that with respect to what was really a difficult subject. And it does it well. And so that's This Guilty Land.
When I hear you say that, and I just have a short little interjection here, because I'm going to let Trent talk. Of course, he's played it. I have not. But when you said that, Andy, I was thinking, there's many political situations of the past that end up getting immortalized largely by some form of media. You think of Pablo Picasso's Guernica, how this artwork that sort of predicted the destruction that was yet to come in World War II. The sort of lamenting just the erosion of human rights in his home country that he'd been exiled from and been living as an expat in France. I mean, to a certain extent, this is a game system that could theoretically be laid on top of those sorts of the conflicts, the ones that when looking back, we can see, our society has taken a certain path. And when we look back on this, we should feel shame. We should feel that way, and knowing that you're approaching that in this game, I think is very important, Andy. I think that, you could probably lay systems, lay this onto like very oppressive dictatorship situations, human rights crises that's pervaded, especially, I mean, you could almost have this be like a united fruit versus the, like the interests of the better, the better welfare of Latin American countries that were essentially just pawns in a game. I think that there's ways that this could be adapted. Think of the situation, genocides that have happened across time. World War II makes me consider this, that like there was no way that this thought pattern could have ever ever worked by reasoning people over to the side that's on the darker part of history, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that's very much what this game's about.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it was going to be a short aside, and I ended up talking for like 2 solid minutes. But anyway, Trent, actual experience with the game.
Andy laid it out really well. There's a reason this was very high on the list, too. It is a game that evokes a strong emotional response while simultaneously being extremely solid mechanically. And it's one of those that I would be careful who I played it with, to be honest with you. I would not play this with just a random person at a game night. I would feel uncomfortable putting this in my game bag to take to most game nights.
Sounds like a very intimate experience almost.
It is. It does something different that most board games don't do. It digs at something different and deeper, and that's why I'm just amazed by it. It's a really powerful experience. And it's, in terms of a game, in terms of just like pure mechanics and thinking about it, if you put a very, put a much lighter theme on this, like, it would still be a really, really good game. It's the fact that the theme hits the mechanics so well, and the theme is so grave, I don't know, lack of a better word, I can't think of a better word for it, that really makes this something different. And if you have the right person to explore this with, this is definitely worth exploring.
Right. Yeah, like to just kind of add to that, because Trent hasn't played this one yet. It's one I need to play with him so he can comment on. But this Guilty Land system was kind of a refinement of a previous game Tom Russell did called Optimatis e Populares, which was about the Roman Senate. So the Roman Senate, had its political blah 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 all over the place kind of thing. And it's a good game. It's not quite as polished, and you can definitely see from that game and this Guilty Land how much Tom Russell has grown as a designer. Because like Optimatis Populares, very good, like very good design, but just it's got that sort of like indie, a few rough edges to it kind of look or feel. Whereas like this Guilty Land mechanically is smooth, slick, really good. Like everything makes very good intuitive sense. But this Guilty Land evokes very big emotions and definitely shows a higher degree of care and compassion and intelligence in the way it was designed than Optimatis e Populares, which it should. It's a much more raw subject, right? But it's interesting to look at the two and see how it affects you differently, and how he's grown as a designer with those designs. I actually remember reading an interview he had done, and it's kind of neat. He was on Twitter recently too, and he said something to the effect of, "This Guilty Land might be the best game I've ever done, and it might be the best game I ever do. And I'm okay with that. And I'll still make games and it won't bother me." Like, he's like, I don't feel like I can top that. And actually, after he had done it, he's like, I'm really glad it's over, because he lived with this design for over a year, which means he had to be dealing with this subject matter on some level in his head for over a year. Like that's tough. You read stories about method actors who have to play these historical villains, and like how they have to live in that world throughout the shooting and beforehand, and they end up having to have therapy afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a heavy subject matter. Obviously, you know, having to experience it from a literature standpoint is certainly traumatic. Certainly not to in any way, you know, the real individuals impacted by it, you know, but by the institutions here, by the institutions of oppression, certainly have it much worse than we do. But it is certainly something, like you said, Andy, something that has an impact on you as you experience it.
I have been thinking about this a lot, and I think these mechanisms in a general way, not exactly the same, but a similar game with similar mechanisms, would be a really fascinating way to deal with the civil rights movement.
Oh, yeah. Like, you could even maybe, like, if you went into a dark subject as well, I mean, like, you know, you could use almost a system like this to explain how, like, an Adolf Hitler sees his political power.
You mean better than Secret Hitler did?
Yeah, I think so. Having not played it, I'm still thinking, yeah.
Well, great, Andy. Okay, well, we needed to just get a little whiff of what we were used to from Andy there, but
yeah, crapping on everybody else.
Well, Andy, I love your list, and I'm glad that, you know, your top game is certainly a 2018 release. One that I think is, you know, coming out from Hollandspiel certainly could use, you know, considering what you say about it, how much it impacted you and affected you, considering the designs I've seen from Tom Russell. And I agree that it's, you know, seeing him grow has been very, very cool. I've definitely been on, you know, just kind of like a kid in the backseat as Andy is really driving the Hollandspiel games to the tables that I'm playing on. But it still is something that I have absolutely been aware of. And I look forward to getting to try this game, though it sounds like a game night is probably not going to be the right time for it.
It may not.
Hey Joe, I've got this Hollandspiel game coming out this year. I'm looking forward to playing with you. Just wait. It's called Westphalia.
Oh, okay. Wow. Is it really about?
Like, you'll have to find out, Joe.
Is this?
I'll bring that one to a game night. I'll bring that one to a game night. That'll be good.
Yeah. If it's where my brain is going to, it's not exactly something that I. Yes. Is it going to be kind of in the same system as?
Well, yeah, it's no Karma Sutra, but you know.
No, Westphalia. Westphalia.
Okay, what's it going for? Isn't that a region in Germany?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 6-player. I'm gonna quickly summarize. It's 6-player, half-hour long diplomacy.
Oh, okay. Wow. And Tom Russell will do something like that. He'll do a Cube Rails game that is playable in like 8 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I think that's important to point out about his designs, and this even applies to This Guilty Land, is he tends to prefer unstable designs. So if you go into This Guilty Land expecting it to be a tit for tat, sort of balanced kind of, no, like one wrong move and it can cascade to oppression or justice, kicking you in the teeth and winning very, very quickly.
Hinges on a knife's edge, huh?
Oh, yeah. Like the game I played solo tonight, like I played it out, but like it was very clear the moment justice was going to win.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks, Andy, for giving us your top 10 games that all occurred within the year 2018 for you. And thanks for joining us here, everybody that's been here in our chat. Now we're going to hype a couple of games and get ourselves onto other greener pastures, maybe. I don't know if there will be greener pastures or not, but it'll certainly be happening in the game that Trent's going to be telling us about, which is apparently there won't be any green pastures in either of our hype games because we're both doing outer space games. And we all know that there's no green pastures in outer space. It's just all shades of dark blue and black.
Yeah. That's a nice way.
That's all it is. Yeah, there's no other colors. Just simply those two colors. No life out there. But anyway, Trent, you're going to tell us about how in the space of the future. This is a game Andy hyped last week. For those of you that are following us here and keeping up.
I wasn't on last week. I didn't know he hyped this. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Okay, so I'm hyping SpaceCorp. It's a new release by GMT Games. It's designed by John Butterfield. It's basically you're a space corporation. You're trying to. It goes over 3 eras, which literally has 3 different boards. You kind of take the game state from when you finish phase 1. You kind of take that game state, move it to a new board fairly transparently, and continue from there. And you played over 3 phases. I'm interested in this because it's got a theme I'm very interested in. It's like the era of the first 3 books of the Expanse series, and I dearly love the Expanse book series. Highly, highly recommended.
Isn't it based on an actual series that's called SpaceCorp?
It might be. I don't really know. I just know that this era is yeah, apparently it is. It's based on a book by Egner Fulsang. I'm not familiar with the book at all, but I want to read it now because that's a type of near-future sci-fi that I really like. Anyway, it has a lot going on in it, but it's very playable. It's also very soloable. It's the type of game that I'm looking forward to getting to the table. I've in the last year, I've really become a solo gamer. I really come to enjoy a lot of solo games. And this is right in that wheelhouse. And it's also a theme that I really enjoy, and I trust the designer. So all around good stuff. Plus, I trust the publisher. GMT is probably my favorite publisher. So let's do this.
The only thing I've heard that's kind of a downer on this is apparently there were, which is not usual for GMT as I think about them, but there was like a lot of them sent out with not having the cards that they needed.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a very strange, like just a bizarre occurrence.
Right. And so like several people got the cards and they only got cards for like the first 2 eras. So they couldn't even play kind of the penultimate era. So maybe just if you're going to get that now, be careful about that and understand that may happen. From what I heard, GMT is doing everything to make it right, but it's just going to, take time to get the corrected cards from the printer and all that kind of stuff. So it will be fixed for people, but just kind of know that there apparently was some mistakes there, but they are being rectified. So, was yours fine, Trent? Did it have everything you needed?
Seemed to be.
Okay.
Well, now he's all paranoid, and now he's got to go
check. I didn't notice it when I went through it, but I know I'm going to look more carefully. So,
sure. Yeah, well, I would too. I mean, that's kind of rough. Usually GMT's pretty good about that stuff. So.
Oh, yeah. Like, I haven't had any issues.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had an issue with one game, but they fixed it immediately. And I've gone through many, many GMT games over the years. So yeah. I've had exactly one issue, and it was a minor one.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's perfect. So SpaceCorp looks really interesting. And I was going to tell everybody, I guess I am going to hype the New Frontiers, which is just impossible to find. Race for the Galaxy's Mike. I'm sorry, not Mike. It's Tom Lehman. He designed a Race for the Galaxy board game that is selling like crazy. It, just the way that it's selling so quickly makes me wonder if this isn't one of those where once you start playing it, it's like, nope, this is a system that I know is going to work. I know I'm going to be able to teach people. He wrote a very detailed designer diary that was thrilling to see how he's designing and how he's trying to make the Race for the Galaxy system work in a heavier setting. This is kind of like that, what he called Race for the Galaxy coming full circle. I'm very excited for that. I'm also excited for the 3 games that just came in from Kickstarter in the last 3 days. And that was Tutor from Academy Games. That looks to be a more kind of a classic Euro, but one that has several different dynamic scoring and scenario setups, and a fairly crunchy, heavier, maybe medium to medium heavy Euro. So I'm looking forward to that. Looks like, you get to put rings onto your a hand, and where you put these rings on your 5 fingers gives you certain abilities, and these abilities tie to these actions you can take. It's really cool. Yeah, it's the one that has the plastic rings, but the plastic rings, I gotta say, as far as a component goes, it's definitely, as far as a miniature goes, a fairly sloppily designed miniature that doesn't quite like, it doesn't snap shut, and it's kind of just a little. I mean, they're very functional, but the plastic is definitely, if you're a components person, probably not going to be swung over by the way that Tudor's plastic rings work. Another game that I got just recently is Gugong, the deluxe edition from, I believe it was Game Brewer, and maybe Tasty Minstrel helped out with the delivery of this, but I know it was Game Brewer. It might not have anything to do with Tasty Minstrel, but I'll just say that, like, wow, what a production. I've never seen so many, like so much wooden pieces that fit nicely into a box. And I mean, yeah, it's a very deluxe edition, and I'm very excited to try another game from Andreas Stedding. And finally, today I got City of Kings, which is like, Efka, from No Pun Included, mentioned it to me when we were recording, and he sounded like he was so excited by it, but also he felt like he wasn't sure if he could recommend it, because as soon as he talked to me, he was like, "Well, you sound like it, like you might be a little bit more, interested in the mechanics of the game than City of Kings is kind of looking to deliver a thematic type experience together with sort of a Gloomhaven type structure." And I'm interested, but man, this thing is a monster when it comes to like size. So all those games, ones that I'm interested in, any of those, like I just talked about 4 games. Were any of those games on either of your radars?
Race for the Galaxy board game is, but like I said, it's gone boom, so I don't really.
Yeah, that one came out of the fucking blue for me. Like, I think the first time I ever heard of it was like literally when I like saw Game Surplus having it. And I was just like, "What is that?" And I clicked on it. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know this existed."
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's an exciting week with lots of things coming in. I know, Andy, you're also, if you had a chance to hype, maybe you'd say something about Crayon Rail games.
Yeah, I got a few of those. Mostly just because like they're going like, Mayfair's like defunct now, and like I just don't see where these games are ever going to be reprinted. Like I know Mayfair's been bought out, but I know like I just don't see in the modern board game world where someone's going to go, "You want me to make a game with a board and crayons?" No. But no, I've heard good things. So I snagged up a few real quick. So I got Iron Dragon now. I got Empire Express for a quick one. And actually, I don't know if I told you or not, Joe. I ended up I got this really cool auction that Luke from Bridge City Board Gamers actually linked to me. But I ended up with Empire Builder for like $35. So sort of like the big one that started it all. Which is nice because I am not seeing US copies for like under 100.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool.
It'll be interesting to explore. The only thing I actually really do want to hype though is, we got a copy of Donning the Purple from a listener as a gift from Mur, and that's really awesome. And I've looked through the rules to that and everything, and I'm really interested to see how that plays out. It kind of gives me a vaguely Time of Crisis vibe. However, it's more action point than it is deck building. And it's also like the way you deal with enemies and stuff, I think is going to be, you're going to appreciate that a lot more, Joe. It's much more in that sense. Like there's dice, but it's just to determine like what regions are affected by what. But once they're there, how you kill and stuff is very straightforward. The thing that I think that will make this interesting too is like the front cover kind of says it all. It has like this picture of a new Caesar wearing the purple robes, like, "Hey, everyone loves me," and then like everyone behind him like has a knife in their hands. Because the way it's kind of actually like a game I had from Hollenspiel Dynasty, in that the way you get the most points is by being emperor. And if there's already emperor in the way, there's only one way to become emperor: remove the emperor. And so you assassinate them. You have so much stamina, which kind of like represents the life force of your family member. So like whenever you use up all your stamina taking actions, like you die. And then like you reset all your stamina because your kid took over. But it's cool because like the more actions you take, the more discs and stamina you use, and there's ways for enemies to attack you and remove discs. The closer you get to death, and you actually do get like a -1 victory point every time you die.
Really?
Yeah. So it looks really interesting. But yeah, there's a lot the Emperor has to do, like feeding the people and all that. And yeah, so like, you know, everything you do as the player is basically trying to figure out how to become Emperor, and the Emperor is just trying to keep Rome from like going crazy and massacring everybody because they're not fed. I don't know. It's really interesting. And it looks to play a lot quicker than, say, Time of Crisis. So it kind of gives me that vibe of like chaotic Roman times. Everybody wants to be emperor, but you're done in sub 2 hours. Whereas like Time of Crisis, the biggest problem with Time of Crisis is, you know, it's meant to pull people into wargaming, but then it still has the length of a war game.
Yeah.
And then it's really easy to end up in a 3-hour game of that.
Oh yeah, three is not. 3 would be absolutely, like, I would say, an average length.
Right. And so in Donning the Purple, no, it's like 70 to 90 minutes. And I think the decisions you make are fairly straightforward. So I see that as a very realistic playtime.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Andy, for sharing that and for sharing your top 10. It's been great being here with you and also with Trent. And to everybody who's listened here live, it's been great to have you guys too. You know, Tony joined in. I got bombarded by a bunch of my students. So if you're still sticking around till now, it was an interesting, an interesting bit of interesting perspectives were injected into our chat here for a little while.
Yeah, now they're going to be in class with you tomorrow and be like, so Mr. Salin, who was the kid playing the racist game with you?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Joe explaining This Guilty Land in class.
Actually, it would be like I think we could tackle that one. I think that
when they're like,
kids are used to, hearing me, try to, I don't know. They're used to hearing me get up and just try to get up and make the world a better place. But in the end, they, I just.
Oh yeah, no. See, what you got to do is if they bring it up and they'll be like, I have strong feelings about this, and you're like, in Espanol. that actually, Andy, is, that's how I win every argument in my classroom. If they're listening, yeah, they heard it here first. If I want to win an argument, I just shut them down by saying, no inglés, solo español. And that means we're not going to talk about this right now. By the way, Spanish teacher fun. Look up on YouTube when we're done. C3PO attends Spanish class.
All right. You heard it here. You heard it from Andy, not from me, is what I would say to any parents or parents or my boss or anybody else. But anyway, we're here to the end of this episode, The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. I'm the host, Joe Salin. I'm wishing you a wonderful week of gaming, and we will catch you next week here on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.
Good night.